With all this talk going on, Suella Braverman had to edge in there somewhere, and she has on LBC. She's delivered something with the fervour of a Sunday sermon, reigniting the debate over multiculturalism, British values, grooming gangs, and her pointed remarks that came in a conversation with Jacob Rees Mogg have targeted those she described who don't subscribe to British values, while presenting herself as the torchbearer for what she considers to be the Judeo-Christian foundations of Western civilization. Braverman's central argument that the grooming gang scandal holds up a mirror to British society suggests a much deeper cultural divide, and she conflates the heinous crimes with what she frames as an existential threat posed by those entering Britain without assimilating to its supposed core values: the rule of law, equal rights for women, the freedom of thought. Her rhetoric, however, simplifies a complex issue into an overtly neat dichotomy: British virtue versus foreign vice. That basically, surely, is xenophobia. And this speech is as much about the politics of posturing as it is about introspection and who we are. With the Conservatives trailing in the polls, Braverman's comments are likely aimed at galvanising the party's base, and by amplifying fears of cultural erosion, she is setting herself up as the defender of Britain's identity in a way that resonates with segments of the electorate uneasy about immigration and integration. Well, they've already gone over to Reform UK, and Labour, for its part, has tried to avoid this framing, with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer maintaining opposition to another inquiry into grooming gangs, and Jess Phillips, Labour's safeguarding minister, echoing the views of Professor Alexis Jay, arguing that action, not further investigation, is the priority at the moment. And this distinction creates a clear divide. Braverman calls for a cultural reckoning, with Labour emphasising practical measures for survivors. Braverman's rhetoric risks oversimplifying and politicising a sensitive issue, and by framing these crimes in terms of cultural incompatibility, she may alienate communities rather than foster the unity she ostensibly advocates. And it's worth noting that crimes like grooming are not confined to any one ethnicity or any one culture. It's a point made by numerous inquiries, including Jay's landmark child abuse inquiry, and Braverman's assertion that Britain faces a choice between standing confidently for its values or cowering to outmoded ones also feels sort of fake, really, especially in the context of her party's broader struggles. Critics might argue that this is less about solutions and more about creating a convenient scapegoat. Jacob Rees Mogg was interviewing her, and ever the genteel enabler, he played his role as an affable, nodding figure. He didn't actually edge in to skewer the interview as he normally does. He adds an air of gravitas to Braverman's tirade, yet his lack of challenge to her sweeping statements underscores the issue. This wasn't a discussion, this wasn't an interview, it was a monologue dressed up as some sort of double-header. And this controversy that Braverman puts forward, that's already been paraded by Jenrick and by Kemi Badenoch, risks using crimes like grooming as a political football. And while Braverman may succeed in energising her supporters, her comments risk deepening divisions, detracting from the pressing need for robust safeguarding policies and support for survivors. This isn't about immigration, this is about people who have been hurt in Britain. And ultimately, while Braverman's rhetoric is fiery, it offers little in the way of actionable solutions, except for reviving the Rwanda plan, I suppose. Her claim that the grooming scandal reflects a cultural failing may resonate with some, but it sidesteps the structural and the institutional failings that have allowed such abuses to persist. The failing of proper policing, the failing of the Home Office, the things which she was until very recently in charge of. And calling for yet another inquiry rather than action to help the people, to help the survivors, to help the victims. I mean, you only have to look over at the Post Office inquiry, where the Post Office inquiry seems to get far more attention than actually the efforts to pay back the money that was stolen, to pay compensation to the victims who were abused. The Windrush inquiry, the tainted blood inquiry, all these inquiries, they're just a way of kicking the football down the road and not actually helping the people who have been hurt by the systems that aren't working properly. By all means, have an inquiry, but first, sort out the problems that have been created. Britain does need a mirror, but it reflects the need for less posturing and more meaningful action.